Many lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people have difficulty finding healthcare where they feel welcomed, included, and respected. In this video, you will hear from people discussing the ups and downs of receiving healthcare. These stories show how assumptions, word choice, and body language can affect the quality of care a person receives.
When I was growing up in rural Delaware, Ohio, my doctor never once talked about sexual health, never once talked about, asked me if I was a part of the LGBT community. And I always, because of that, felt a little weird about asking him about that. But I just specifically remember when I came back from college, I told my doctor, I need to get HIV tests. I need to start getting STD tests. And he's like, was confused. Like, why do you need to start doing that? Why? Why do you need those tests? And I don't see any symptoms of any of this stuff. And I was like, well, I am a gay male, and I understand that these things are things that I need to start talking about, thinking about, looking at. It brought up all those different things that you think about when you kind of tell a doctor you need something and they feel like they don't think that you need it as well. So feeling invisible and those kind of things.
In my later 20s, my partner and I decided we wanted to try to have a baby. And we tried to no avail. We went to a specialist hoping that we could just begin to understand our options, recognizing that options for two women trying to have babies insurance-wise are a little bit more constricted than they are for heterosexual couples. And he began talking with me and completely and totally just focusing on me. And my partner was sitting right next to me, and he acted like she wasn't even there. So I continued to refer to her and us and we and our family that we're trying to create together, and he just couldn't even look to acknowledge her presence, which was disturbing because we were together trying to do this together. And he got more and more agitated as I was asking questions. And at the height of it, just finally said, you know what, I can't give you any special treatment. And that was when we said, thank you very much, and left. It made me and us feel invisible. Even though he was looking at me, it made me feel like he's not seeing me at all. He's not understanding what we're here to talk about.
So I got the name of a physician that I thought would be a good fit for me, and I went in to my first office visit with him to establish care, and I shared with him that I was gay right up front, and that I had a partner that I'd been with for, at that time, maybe 10 years, and kind of went through the list, and I got the impression he was uncomfortable. When it came time to taking a sexual history, one of the things that he said to me was, well, of course you're monogamous, and really kind of shut the conversation down. Not that I was necessarily going to disclose everything about, but that judgment, that assumption of who I was and what I did in terms of behavior, and it really kind of made the rest of that interview kind of difficult, because I felt like I couldn't really be honest with him now because of these assumptions that he had kind of implied and made.
Me estaba hablando con un amigo que trabaja en una oficina de LGBT Health, y él me contó sobre una medicina llamada PrEP, un profiláctico que ayuda a prevenir la VIH. Entonces me interesé mucho y decidí que durante mi siguiente cita con mi doctor de cabecera íbamos a hablar sobre el PrEP. Y pensé que iba a ser un procedimiento muy fácil, y desafortunadamente eso no fue lo que pasó. Lo que noté en vez fue que él como que me regañó más. Me dijo que porque no estaba usando condones durante cada encuentro. Sí, si eso le funciona a mi doctor, qué chévere, pero eso no es suficiente para todo el mundo. Y creo que lo que me asustó mucho sobre esa cita fue que la mentalidad era, hay una solución que aplica para todo el mundo. Y la realidad no es tan simple. Cada paciente individual necesita un plan específico para ese paciente de cómo seguir con sus tratamientos, con sus cuidados médicos, con su medicina. No es suficiente para decir que hay una solución para todo el mundo, porque todos tenemos vidas diferentes, experiencias diferentes, condiciones médicas diferentes, y eso honestamente me asustó y me dio mucha rabia. Y también me hubiera gustado que él me hubiera dicho: Mike, usted aparentemente sabes mucho sobre esta medicina, hable conmigo, dime lo que tú sabes. Porque si él hubiera hecho eso, si él me hubiera dado preguntas, me hubiera preguntado yo qué sé sobre esta medicina, creo que hubiéramos tenido una conversación más productiva la primera vez, y creo que yo me hubiera sentido como yo tengo una parte importante en mi propio cuidado. Muchas veces, especialmente en las vidas de inmigrantes, nos sentimos como niños en un hospital. Yo estoy aquí para hacer lo que me dice el doctor. Si él dice brinque, yo brinco. Si él dice hable, yo hablo. Y la realidad es que usted no está aquí para que otra persona te mande. Esto es un compromiso, una conversación. En esta situación somos iguales el doctor y el paciente, porque tenemos que trabajar como un equipo para poder darme el cuidado óptimo.
So really my first healthcare experience as a trans person was when I actually came out to like my first PCP and really kind of initiated that process of transition. And it was obviously terrifying. I had been with this PCP for 4 or 5 years at that point, and this was really the first step. From the get-go, when I first said, I'm interested in starting hormone treatment, and she said, well, why? You don't have any hormone imbalances or anything. I said, well, I'm transgender and I'd like to transition from female to male, and I'd like to, use hormones for that. And she was like, oh, well, I've never done this before. I've never had a patient that I, initiated hormones with and took them through the transition process, but I'm more than willing to work with you, and we can really do this together. And that's what I really appreciated, was the fact that she acknowledged that she'd never done this before, but she wasn't scared to really educate herself and listen to what I wanted as well and kind of move this forward. It was very affirming in a lot of ways, because there was never a question of are you sure this is how you identify? And she was very good about, when they were relevant, she asked the questions that she needed to ask, but I don't feel like she was being, overly invasive or just asking questions to satisfy her own curiosity. It was very much very patient-focused care that she gave me, and just really, wanting to make sure that I achieved the goals that I wanted to achieve, but helping me get there safely. I have had providers in the past who have made some assumptions, and it's well, that's not really correct, and that can affect healthcare. People think that if you're going to go through the process of transitioning to male, obviously it's because you're attracted to females, and that's not necessarily the case. And then also recognizing that my journey is my own, and not attributing all these other health concerns that may be endemic to the trans population, but may not apply to myself.
So I grew up in the Midwest, and I came out to my family in high school. And I remember having a physical with my primary care provider and not being out to my parents at the time, and being really nervous about her being the first adult that I might come out to, and not feeling super close to her, because I saw her probably once a year. And her asking me if I'm sexually active, and I said yes, because at the time I had started dating someone. And then her bring up a conversation about birth control, and understanding that didn't apply to me, and was this going to be the moment where I kind of outed myself, or was I just going to answer the questions and say no? Knowing that if I had done that, she would have probably kept pushing me for the answers. And so I did come out to her, and I was really nervous. I think I probably stuttered over my words and didn't feel very confident about it. And when I kept coming back to her each year, she kind of kept bringing that birth control question back up, which I remember feeling kind of angry about or misunderstood. So I almost felt pushed backwards a little bit, I think, in thinking about, have I not really figured this out about myself, or is this something I should just start on, and is this what good healthcare looks like if you're a young woman? And so having to just kind of reassert myself and be really authoritative with her was uncomfortable as a young person to a kind of much older provider who had known me for a long time. I think she could have just asked, Julian, I know you're dating women exclusively at this point in your life. I think that's wonderful. I'm so happy that you're in a home that has been accepting of that. If your situation changes, if your identity changes or how you're feeling changes, if your behaviors change, let's talk about birth control, or you know that you could always bring that back up with me, but I'm not going to bring it back up because I understand what you've told me about yourself.
En la primera experiencia que yo tuve, lo que pudo haber sido mejor cuando primero salí y dije, soy queer, soy bisexual, hubiera sido que el proveedor me entendiera en una forma que podía decir en su cara, oh, yo entiendo que es ser LGBTQ, yo entiendo que es ser queer o bisexual, y poder hablarme del tema y proveerme con información o grupos, o sentirme que yo soy normal como cualquier otra persona. Pero la expresión en la cara de mi proveedor en ese tiempo era como, ¿qué me estás diciendo? Y yo sé que no me entendían mucho. Para mí, la primera manera en cual puedo sentirme afirmada por mi proveedor de salud es si yo entro a la sala de espera para la oficina, que hay cosas que reflejan quién soy yo, que soy un Latinx, que soy queer, que hay otras personas que van a esa clínica que representan mi gente de todas formas, y que hay una variedad de pacientes en esa clínica.
Now that we are a family of 4, we often will go to appointments all together. When my children were in preschool, and at that point we had explained to them how they were created, the donor concept and what that all meant, and what it meant to be kids from a 2-mom family, and how to explain that to their friends as they started school. And we had noticed some signs that my son might have had a genetic illness that might get more challenging as he grew older, so we were referred to a genetic specialist. And this person immediately started saying, and the father, and the father, and the dad, and the dad, and the father, and the father, and it was, and I kept saying, donor back, and they kept saying, father, father. And our kids are getting more and more like bewildered, wondering, what are these people talking about? I thought we had this conversation about how our family came to be, and we understand this donor thing, but why is this person saying that we have a dad? And it was just really, really overwhelming and confusing. So it makes us invisible, and it's also very confusing and upsetting to the kids when they're not acknowledged and they don't understand it in the way that we do. So I think that's a big thing, just making us know that you see us and acknowledge us, and ask questions if you need to. The question we started with, what are your pronouns? Like, that's a really important question. How do you identify? Those are important questions, so that a provider can then get the language that the people sitting in front of them use, so that they can then use that moving forward.